All right, everyone. Today we have a very fun episode of Cubicle Liberation podcast lined up for you. We have Marie and Moon on with David and myself today, our kind of normal hosts. Welcome to you guys. So I was able to meet both these folks last year at a live event that was held here in Phoenix, Arizona, by Terry Samuels, who we've got lined up to come on the podcast at a later date, and was really kind of just really refreshingly opened up to what they're doing, the way they look at what we do in kind of this little niche of digital marketing with SEO, the way they kind of approach building websites and looking at data and really working to create websites and properties on the internet that attract traffic in the right way. And so we're going to talk a little bit kind of about their kind of backstory, what brought them here, how they kind of look at what they do professionally online, and hopefully expose some, I won't say secrets, but some things that everyone can take away and do something with to better their own lives and the lives of the people that they work with. So today, welcome everyone.
Hi, guys.
All right. Marie, why don't you just kind of lead off? Do you have anything to kind of say to introduce yourself or give us a little more insight on, kind of how you landed on the internet? And
how do you say your last name?
My last name is Isais. It's actually super simple to say. It's just the spelling freaks everybody out.
Yeah. Which is why I did not say it.
Nobody has ever pronounced my last name, so that's okay.
I did. I got it right.
Yep,
so
she
right
did
after.
Right. Yep.
Bold.
So Moon and I are from Rule Your Rankings, and we can kind of tell a story about how we met or how this even got started. So I was already on the internet doing things. I had a local agency. I actually still have the local agency here in Austin. And I just wasn't really super happy. I was still trying to find my way through the, online, what I wanted. Everyone thinks, oh, I want a big agency. And then you kind of get the big agency. And I just wasn't happy with what I was doing. So with my story, how it kind of happened is I had the agency, it was running, everything was going well, except I was still looking for something. I ended up having a really bad accident, and it kind of started with 5 years of trying to heal from that. And during that time, I kind of really refocused and realized I had to look for something else, that this wasn't it, and that I wasn't going to be able to go back to what I was doing exactly. So it kind of put me on the path of realizing I valued family time a lot more. I valued, taking the kids to school and making sure they had everything that they needed. And my agency life didn't really fit in with that. So after the accident, I spent 5 years recovering. After that time, I actually heard and found Moon during all of the shakeup. And Moon, actually, I friended her on Facebook to say, hey, I see what you're doing. I liked it. I just kind of wanted to reach out. There's not a ton of women online. So I was like, hey, what's going on? And she actually made me wait a year to even accept my friendship or even say hello.
Jerk.
He has dragged me through the mud over this.
Yes. So a year later.
Focus on this now. Let's dig into this.
Oh, boy.
Emotional pain this has caused you.
Oh, my gosh.
So for a year later, she messaged me like, hey, how's it going? And becomes a friend. And I'm like, who is this? What is this? I messaged you a year ago. So yeah. A year later, she does message me, and it kind of just, I don't know, everything just started from there. Moon can probably take over that part of the story when we first started talking. And then out of all of that, Rule Your Rankings happened.
Yeah, you kind of skipped over a couple bumpy things. It all sounds so smooth looking back, but she did send me a Facebook message and then a friendship request, and I made her wait a while.
A
But
year, not a while, a year.
it was
So are
at
you playing in
least
a cool, or is that just you just have a bunch
honestly.
of time requests?
So my story is a little bit unique in the sense that like, so my Facebook profile, the personal one, I tended to share a lot of things going on in my life. And I didn't know if I should really have SEOs and all these other like career oriented, whatever you want to call it, like professional folks on that personal profile. And that was a big struggle for me. So this was me, like I had quite a few friendship requests and they all just sat there while I couldn't make up my mind one way or another.
So it took her a year.
Everybody wants to be Moon's friend.
Yeah, so I actually friended her and then we started talking and right off the bat there was just like this chemistry, whatever, like we were just having fun talking about stuff and SEO and sharing our stories. And it wasn't just like, oh, let's partner up, right off the bat or anything. It took a couple months. We were just talking back and forth. And I don't know, like we started being more bold in different groups. Like individually, we weren't as bold. Like I would participate in Facebook groups, but I wouldn't create posts and this and that. But, talking to each other, it just gave us a little bit more, I don't know if it's confidence or we just pushed each other or whatever. So we started talking more and more in these groups and, people were resonating with that. The admins weren't as happy, but, people started liking our stuff. And then soon after, Marie started getting messages about, oh, we love what you're talking about. Do you guys have a group? And so then we're like, okay, maybe we'll start a group. And then I remember thinking, okay, what should the name be? We came up with a couple of them. And then, I don't know, Rule Your Rankings just stuck. I don't even know how we came up with it. But the first two members were me and her, and then like 5 of our people and just family and friends. And then we celebrated at 25 and 50 and 700. And now we're at like over 4,000, which is pretty cool.
Nice. In terms of your Facebook group.
Sorry, what?
In terms of your Facebook group, right?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes. Sorry. Yeah. So that's how we came to be. I made her wait a year, but we nailed it. Timing is everything. So I'm going to stand by that.
All right. So I'm curious. Let's go back to Marie. What did you think of Fletch when you first met him?
Actually, I met Fletch in person, but before that, I had actually been a fan of his. And so secretly, quietly, I guess stalked him. No, but I had listened to some of his work. I had seen, I had seen him on video. And so I was a fan. So when we went and we met and I realized who he was, he said his name and everything. I was like, I've known you, I've watched you quietly, never said anything to you, but I was always a fan. So it was actually kind of cool to actually see him in person. And actually Fletch was he was the one with the most questions at the conference. So I think he asked 50 questions out of everybody.
I still have some that I haven't asked because I got cut off.
Yeah.
Terry's like, come on, we gotta move on.
Yes. So he was asking and I kind of nudged Moon. I was like, I don't want to get up and speak. He's gonna
She's like, I can't do it. I was like, and I'm like, calm down, it's fine.
He's gonna ask forever. And it's just Fletch had probably the most amount of questions, but they were also the most inquisitive, the most interesting. Yeah. He was really soaking in the information. So it was actually super cool.
Yeah.
Never test Fletch's commitment to when you say, ask as many questions as you want.
Oh my God. So, never say that statement around him, Marie.
Yeah.
Never.
Moon, what was what did you think of Fletch when you met him?
So I believe I have seen his name in groups and stuff over the years, but obviously it was my first time meeting a lot of people from the industry at the conference. And he's just the guy who would not stop with the questions.
I didn't realize this is where we're going to go with this.
A t-shirt that has a question mark on it. Yeah.
But that was great though. Me and Marie were talking about it afterwards. He had the best questions. They were smart questions at the same time. So, but then, when I talked to him in person, he was just laid back and chill and very cool to talk to. So, it's always nice to just kind of connect on that level.
Yeah, it was a fun event. It was, like I said, it was local here in Phoenix, which was super convenient for me. I'd gotten to meet Terry about a year before that through a mutual friend. And, that when I go to a conference now, I really, like when people bring up certain topics, I'm like, okay, well, based on what I know to be true and based on what they're saying, like what else would I have to know to be able to then know a whole lot more. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And yeah, their topic for whatever reason. I'm like this with a lot of different people who bring topics up, but I'm really fascinated by kind of where people start and where they choose to really focus on building their knowledge from. And the approach that they've taken to kind of building on what they do with search engine optimization, search engine influence, whatever you want to call it, is similar to mine, but it comes from, obviously their own experience. And so I think in one way it was something that's like, oh, they're kind of looking at things the same way I look at things, but they've discovered completely different things than I have, kind of come upon or built. So,
That's cool.
just in general, it's one of the reasons that I like doing the podcast and I like doing, kind of webinars, and interview is like way too formal. It's more like conversations and stuff. But, I don't want to be the person who leaves a room where people have information that somebody hasn't gotten out of them yet. Right. I want to make sure that if I've got
beat it out of them.
Yeah, one way or another. It's like, if it doesn't come out here, it'll come out at breakfast or at the bar afterwards or wherever it might be.
Yep. Wherever. So, there he was.
So being curious is kind of just something I continue to, I don't try to shy away from, where Marie and Moon both said they may have known about me, but I want to be as curious as anybody there. Right. I had questions from what anybody's done that's been successful. And, yeah. You guys have some stuff that not a lot of other people are talking about. And in one way, even if they're talking about it, they're not offering a solution to it. So, that's kind of the big thing that struck me. So.
I started reading the Da Vinci Code, or whatever the book is about, how Da Vinci is a genius, and the number one principle, the first principle that kind of guarantees the other principles, is curiosity. And so I always try to have a strong curiosity, which is why it works well with Fletch, and we'll ask you lots of questions. So ruleyourrankings.com is where someone would go to find out more information about you guys and what you guys can do.
Yeah, we have case studies there, our newsletter you can subscribe to, email newsletter, and then the Facebook group link should be there too, right, Marie?
Okay.
Yeah, it is. So, and usually you can find us in the group. We interact a lot within the group. We help a lot of the members that are there. There's always a ton of questions, and we spend a lot of our time kind of hanging out with the group and making sure they have what they need so that they can move forward.
Right. And Marie can take the credit for that. She does an amazing job answering like tons of questions in the group. And I just drop by when I have to.
Drive by.
Marie doesn't work there.
She's like, oh, Marie's got it.
Well, so I do want to go way back. Maybe start with Marie in terms of, are you willing to go way back in terms of your story? Did you ever have a day job?
Sure. So if we go way back, it's like many years ago.
Only like 5 or 7 years ago, right? I'm just kidding.
Yeah. So I originally started with a degree in business, a minor in management, and launched right into a family business of consultants that brought private companies public. And I was one of the consultants. I dealt with the Securities and Exchange Commission. I talked to this Securities and Exchange Commission attorneys on a regular basis, helped file a lot of the paperwork, but all of that really kind of changed with 9/11. So we had 9/11 and not a ton of private companies were wanting to go public anymore. So it kind of changed our lives at that point. We had to figure something else out to do. And, to be honest, I wasn't really super in love with that job anyway. It was just kind of something that we were doing, and it you know, it made a lot of great money, but it wasn't my passion, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So after that, and after the fall of that, we ended up doing app development. We owned an app development company. And I worked in that. I was a project manager, a co-owner, did all kinds of stuff. And then one day we needed SEO. So this is kind of what started everything, as I hired and fired, I don't know, 2 to 3 major SEO companies in San Antonio, and ended up so disgusted with the companies. I didn't know what I had paid for. I couldn't figure, you know, it was just a completely new world. I decided I'd run the app development company during the day, and at night I would learn SEO. And that's kind of what started all of this craziness. So
now, what year about was that, Marie?
I don't remember the exact year, but it was probably maybe 8-10 years ago. So it's been a while. So I started learning SEO on the side, decided I wasn't going to hand over any more money to the actual firms, and actually kind of ranked for like national app development terms. The company did really well. We made a ton of apps, but then what happened is I fell in love with the SEO side of it, and so decided to no longer be in the day-to-day activities of the app development company. I decided to launch an SEO agency instead.
Cool. And that was
Austin?
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yes, and that was in Austin. So I still owned and participated in the app development company, but just like as a board member or a monthly thing, and then just launched full into SEO. It's just, I was probably addicted, honestly, to SEO at that point. I could not leave it alone. Like, I ranked the site. We ranked in more countries than I could count. They had more business. The phones were ringing like crazy. And all I could think about is, you know, can I do that again? Can I take another website? Is it going to work? And then if it does work, you know, how many more businesses can I do it with? And it just kind of spiraled out of control, probably.
So that element, I think, is really something that's key, that a lot of people who get into, you know, digital marketing in whatever way they do it, like there are advantages to going about having like a single business that you rank, which is like, I get to see the profit, and like, this is crazy, like the margins that we can make.
Yeah.
But then the questions that come up is, but can I do this again? Can I do this with something else? Right? Where if you come in as an agency, it's like, well, yeah, I can rank all these companies, but I don't really know how much money they're making and whether it's worth it and what my fees are.
Yes.
And so being able to kind of see both sides of that, you have a different insight into, you can do this scientifically and repetitively and dependably, but you also know how much money is in there, how much juice is in there. So maybe talk a little bit about that, because it's something I've experienced, and it really changes things to know that you can do this.
It does. So when and honestly, I didn't know if I was going to be able to rank the site or not. And even if I ranked it, I had no idea if we would get any phone calls or if we would even make any money. So at the time when it started working and everyone's like, you know, hey, what's going on? What are you doing? And we started looking at it, the company became extremely successful. There was a lot of money involved. There was a lot of app development that needed to be done. But the light bulb that kind of went off in my head was, one, I was super passionate about the analytical side of it and actually being able to manipulate or optimize for Google. To me, it was exciting to watch the site go up and then get in the phone calls. And then for me, it was, I realized without the SEO, it was either going to make us or break us type of situation without that amount of business. So it made our business. And so really it kind of developed a passion for me wanting to make other people's businesses. I wanted them to be able to provide for their families. And that's really what started the passion, is working hand in hand with these, people, with different businesses, and then realizing that because of me, they're able to provide and do everything that they want to do for their family. So that's the part that I'm most passionate about.
And that leads into, it seems like that leads into naturally what you kind of led with earlier, which was that you had an agency that kind of been structured in a way that didn't allow you to do what you wanted to do. And actually, I totally understand that. I have 2 kids as well, and I pick them up and take them to school all the time. And I love that. Also, by the way, Austin is a great city. I went to UT Austin, and I miss it. So Austin's such a great city.
It is.
But yeah, I get that. Any other piece from where you're at you think is important to the local agency side of things?
Yeah. So I think when I first got started, I actually became successful very quickly, because instead of waiting for the clients to find me, if I decided, hey, you're going to have an agency, like we need to fill it right away with clients. So I went out and shook hands with every single website developer in 3 different cities around me, and I made partnerships really quick. So I was able to go from 0 clients to all of the clients, I would ever need. And I thought that was like the way to go. Like that was it. I had made it. There's the agency. I had every client you could ever want to. Like I was living the dream, right? Mm-hmm. But what I did was I was so fascinated with the analytical side, the website side. I structured it where I was working in the business all the time, and I was consumed by it. So I think that when I had the accident, it allowed me to realize how many hours I was actually putting in to the agency. And while I still love it and I still like the analytical side of it, I can't work in the business like that anymore. And so I had to make a big change. And it was a little bit shocking to even realize I didn't like that side of it, because if you follow people online or you hear them talk, there's a lot to be said about the people who work 20 hours a day and, they're grinding and the hustle, and like that is the picture of success, right?
Hey, stop talking about me, Marie.
So I was there, I was living in it, and I was like, I don't like this. My body doesn't like it. My family doesn't like it. I have to my whole thing with this was just redefining what success was for me, for my family.
Oh, that's so great. I appreciate that as well. I was at some conference. I don't remember who said this, but he was talking about how he heard Gary Vee talk about, it was like the Christmas Eve, and it was 9 p.m. and he's like, I got to go to a meeting. Haha, I'm so successful. And the speaker was like, wait, that's not successful. He's got kids. He's got to go, and he's giving up on the time with the kids. I mean, what's the point of working if it's not to do the things that you love? So there does need to be balance there.
Yeah, for sure. And I think our industry is notorious for, upholding the people who work 20 hours a day and upholding the crazy cars. And at the end of the day, I think I had a life-changing event. Mm-hmm. And when I analyzed it at the end of the day, I thought, I don't so much care about the cars. I don't care about working 20 hours a day. I need to take care of myself better. And, what do I really want to do? And that's hanging out with the family. That's being there for the kids. That's, providing things that people who work day jobs can't provide. And that's what I wanted to do. I mean, that's the whole entire reason I even got into business for myself, was so that kids never went to daycare, or, we list all these things. But at the end of the day, when I got to where I wanted to be, it turned out it wasn't anything that I wanted after all. Even though it was deemed successful, I wasn't happy. And so that's when I started evolving Met Moon. And really we evolved into, what does success look like for us? Right.
We talk about this like literally every week, where, we're realizing, okay, in our industry, people want to earn ridiculous amounts of money and this and that. But like, even for me, it's a revelation, because I'm used to working long hours and stuff. And I like to work. But having time freedom, it's once you experience, there's a huge difference in earning $5K, working for someone else, sitting behind the computer, or earning it in a way where, you're finishing all that work in maybe 20 hours or something along those lines, right? So now you have all this time to yourself and you're free to do things. So time freedom is like, I've heard about the cliche, like, but not, when you experience it, it's like a mind fuck.
Yeah.
For me, it has been like crazy. I'm like, okay, maybe I don't want a million, maybe I just want to be comfortable, have a savings and travel, or just, do something more with my time. So we've been constantly evolving for the last year and a half, and we talk about this every week. But yeah, the whole time thing for her, it's a family thing for me. It's like, okay, maybe it's nice to not work 10 hours a day, and do other things. It's the things I've forgotten to do at this point, and just getting reacquainted with relaxing and doing other things. But yeah, time freedom, if you've read the 4-Hour Work Week, that's where I started, and it can exist, but there's a lot of time you have to invest into your business or whatever you're doing to get to that down the road. It's doable, certainly doable. And once you get there, it's like, whoa, so that's been a little bit of a struggle for me, but we talk about it every week. And yeah.
So Moon, maybe this is a good opportunity to go way back in your story. Did you ever have a day job?
Yeah. So I graduated in, oh my God, 2000.
What was that again?
2007.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, from UD. I had a degree in computer science, but I took my first job in a panic. Like, everyone's trying to find a job as you're graduating. So I ended up doing customer service for a hosting company. And it was the most stressful job I've ever had. It was crazy. Like, you're expected to answer a certain number of phone calls while answering chat questions. And there's just a huge learning curve, right? Like, all these things I learned in classes, it was completely different working for a hosting company. And then I was pretty miserable there. And then I think this was, I saw an ad in the newspaper. I can't believe, like, do we still have newspapers these days? So I think
I don't even know.
Yeah, we light fires with them, I think.
Yeah.
As I'm saying these things out loud, I'm like, wow, everything's changed.
Newspaper.
Yeah, this is
ring
like,
somebody on the telephone. Yeah, charge up the little dynamo.
Right.
Signal. Yeah.
There used to be a paper where they would list news, and then you had ads in it. So it was for the local school district. They needed a programmer. Long story short, I interviewed with them and I landed it. So that was cool, better salary, but now I had all this time on my hands. Those jobs work in a way where you literally watch the clock tick away, and there was work to do, but I went through times where either I was programming for 4 to 6 hours a day or nothing at all. And, a lot of people who were working there were older. They were there for the benefits, which I can totally understand, that families, but I knew that I couldn't do this long term kind of thing. And that's when I was bored. I ran into making money online type of, players out there and SEO. So I started learning about that. In between, a couple trips to California happened. I quit that job as a programmer, and then I moved out here to San Diego. I had a handful of sites that were producing part-time income, and I had a lot of savings. And then I did client work in between. So it was a good fit until Panda and Penguin and all these things happened. Trying to think in between what else. God, it was a long time ago. So like Marie mentions, like SEO is like an addiction. Like I had a couple months of boohoo, like, this sucks type of thing. But then I got back on it, did more client work. And then I went through some personal stuff with my own family. And that I've struggled a little bit with that in the last 4 or 5 years. So I went through some things, and then I got a job working for someone else, another local SEO or internet marketing guy, whatever you want to call him. And I learned quite a lot of valuable lessons. And then I friended Marie, and it's been really good. it's been very healthy after that. So
Marie's been
ups and downs, a lot of lessons in the last 4 years.
David, I saw you nodding really big as Moon was talking about, like, watching the clock tick, or days where you had some programming, then other times you just kind of just waiting for like the next thing.
So Marie and Moon, I worked as an engineer at Texas Instruments for 6.5 years, and I remember there were times where you're expected to kind of be there and be seen, and I would hopefully they're not listening to this, but because I would like put an audio book on, and pull my email up, and then just stare at the screen while I looked at so if somebody walked by, it looked like I was working. Maybe I'd switch programs every once in a while. Because sometimes there's not, like you said, there's like not work to be done, sort of. It's sort of like there kind of is, but sometimes there just isn't. And people expect to be there, which is total BS, by the way. I also hated just being in meetings. Did you have to go to meetings that you really didn't need to be at? We're just like, oh my God, why the fuck am I here?
Right, like a whole hour with 20 people, and like I program. What do I need to know this for? Like, you know,
so true.
It was hard. Like you literally have to sit there, 9 to 5, and just. I mean, some things were cool, but I just watching the clock go tick-tock every day wasn't for hours on end, so it was looking back in hindsight, like there were lessons to be learned.
It's just too super wasteful to me. Like, to me, life is a collection of experiences, and if you're like spending the time in a meeting as opposed to spending time with your kids or something like what Maria talked about, it's like, which one would you rather do? It's like infinitely better to do this, right? And you only have so much time. So
exactly, yeah.
Well, that's kind of almost like the essence of what you talked about, like time freedom. Like, until you experience it, you can kind of maybe envision it, but it's different to just be like, oh, you don't even get in situations where you're watching the clock. Like, the clock is like, maybe if you scheduled a meeting or you need to talk to somebody or something like that, like it has nothing, like literally nothing to do with how effective you are and the impact you have and the value you bring to whatever project. Yeah.
I went from, working 10 to 12 hours a day, to now, like sometimes we're blessed enough to just do 4 hours of work or something. Not every day, don't get me wrong, but then I'm like, it's like, you were busy for so many hours a day and now you're not. And like your mind, it's something I'm working on with my brain. I'm not used to it. So you have to reprogram yourself in a way. But yeah, time freedom, it exists. It's not a myth. I used to read about it and roll my eyes, just like when you read someone's showing off about $1 million or $500,000 or whatever they're throwing up there. But I mean, it's sweet, but for me, it's going to take a little bit of reprogramming kind of thing.
Yeah, there's a couple things you said in there and something you said earlier that I want to highlight. So I want to go back also to the, because one of the audiobooks I was listening to was the 4-Hour Work Week. And something that is not talked about a lot, which is that you don't start at the 4-Hour Work Week, you build towards it. And that's exactly what you said, and I was really happy to hear that. So,
right. Yeah, I was one of the fools who thought, oh my God, I can do this in 6 months. And then, the turbulence began. But like you said, it's doable. It just takes a little while to get there.
Yeah, you kind of have to pay your dues in the beginning. You set your goals. You put in the hours.
Right.
But the overall goal was to free up our time. And as we go through the process and realize, what we do want and what we don't want, and as we continue to evolve, we realize that we've already put in probably the hardest part of the work, and we're just kind of now figuring out what we do with spare time and stuff like that.
Right. So. And frankly, that's something that we've talked about this summer too, because we can have more clients, right? And we kind of on purpose dialed it down. So that's really an amazing thing that no one talks about, because we're all supposed to make as much as possible. But for us, it was like, okay, I wouldn't mind having some time. So we need to just kind of like,
right.
If we don't want this many clients, we don't have to have them. So, and that's important to us at this point.
The other thing you said that I really liked was working on your brain. I think everyone should be working on their brain a lot more than they do, because it's like so important to the quality of your life. And then Fletch and I talk a lot about like building your understanding. I'm curious, Fletch, do you have any thoughts on how you go about working on your brain? Yes, you.
It's your turn.
Did you say for me to answer this?
Yes.
No.
One of the things that catches my attention a lot, right? That kind of, I won't say it like jumps out, but when it happens, I tend to try to notice it or pay attention to it, is when somebody says something that doesn't quite fit with my model of how I think things are, right? And so, for our work week, I think a lot of us, have read this, whether it was before we got online or afterwards, or we listened to an audio book, and it was like, this whole like making dollars, living on pesos and spending rupees, right? And I was like, I don't even know where rupees are. What, I think it's like Middle East. I don't know.
Hey,
so I had to like look it up. Yeah. Right. And I was like, well, this kind of makes sense. And then I was kind of in economics for a while, and there were all these models that they didn't line up, right? They couldn't both be true at the same time. And so I was like, what gives, right? One of these things is not, it's either that one of these is wrong or that I'm wrong about where I'm standing and saying one of these has to be wrong.
Right.
And so for me, I tend to be like, okay, up to a certain point, I really didn't have a way to really know for sure what was right, what was true. And so I was willing to be flexible and kind of step into these other paradigms, try it out, see what I thought, see what I experienced, and then kind of, judged in one way or another the path I was going to take by the experience I had. And, I think that there's some validity in that, especially as you're kind of trying to learn and figure things out and understand, what could be true. But then at a certain place, I had to step back and be like, well, okay, if all of these seem to work for people sometime or another, right? I've got to figure out the me in this, and then and what I do to apply these, I'll say lessons, but these phenomena, right?
Right.
Like it's kind of obvious that Timothy Ferriss has done well with whatever the hell he's doing, right? Whether it's the actual information in the book or the fact that he's writing the book or whatever it might be. Like something about that is something that can work.
Right.
And so, during that kind of, I don't say transition, because we always think we're kind of like static or I don't know what it is, but there was something that I was like, there's times when I'm looking at things on the wrong level, right? I'm taking the content in this course or in this book too literal, right? And I need to take a step back and realize that this is someone who has run an online e-com business and has now written a book as an author and traveled the world, who now has a perspective to offer people that is rare or even maybe unique right now. And this is why he gets to be a guest lecturer at Pepperdine and Stanford and places like that. It may not be because this book is so literally true, you just follow the instructions, but the way he kind of, took on adventure and uniqueness and things that he wanted to do, I think is something that, it opened my eyes to the fact that, you go to college, you get a degree and you get a job, and then somebody tells you what to do, and then you make that amount of money, or you figure it out on your own, and then you make whatever money. Like there's not, like, up to this point in, I guess, time, there's probably degrees about, internet entrepreneurship or whatever, but I don't know how valuable they would be, right?
Right.
Like how well they would translate into going out on your own and figuring this out. So, what was the question? How do I work on my own brain?
Yes. Work on your brain.
I try to challenge it a little bit. I consider that I am the thing that's keeping me from understanding something. Right. It's not maybe that somebody else is wrong, but it's possible that something I believe is wrong. And so that's a big consideration whenever I'm listening to or reading or, experiencing or, at a conference or whatever. I'm like, it's possible I'm wrong here. Let's see where this goes. Right. Which I think may be one of the reasons why I asked so many questions. I'm trying to sort that out and understand, what's going on, right? If two things can't possibly be true at the same time, I got to sort that out.
Right.
So, Marie, do you do anything to work on your brain?
Don't hold back, housewives.
I know. So I am a big believer of meditation. So I do like meditating, and also for me and my brain, I like to just go outside. I'm a plant person, so like planting and those types of things really kind of relax me or allow me to have deeper thoughts. So for me and my brain, I think I'm constantly evaluating, where's your life at? Where do you want it to go? And so, like Moon said, we talk about this every week. Every week, I think we're resetting goals or refining goals so that at the end of the day, we get to exactly where we want to be. But for me in the mind, I think meditation is probably the biggest thing that I use.
Oh, I love it. Yeah. I try to do meditation and yoga as well. What about you, Moon? You're the one that started this kind of thread. So what do you do to work on your brain?
So that's a work in progress, because even though we've had RYR going really well for close to 2 years now?
Yeah, this December will be our 2-year anniversary.
You better send roses. I want a steak dinner. Honestly, it's something that I'm working on right now, because I've realized that I do work a lot, and so it's my brain struggles. Like, I have racing thoughts, right? And so I have forgotten to relax. Lately, it's been watching a bit of TV or getting back into Housewives, but even then, in the middle of that, I'm like, I could be doing something
out loud.
What?
You just said Housewives out loud.
I know, I did. I used to watch that before it blew up big, okay? Now I know it didn't take off back then and why, we're doing okay right now. But it is a struggle. Like, I play flag football and stuff, but I realize that this year has been a bit of a struggle for me. Having more time, I need to be able to get back into the things I used to love doing, like playing games, just hanging with friends, or just getting a handle on anxiety and stuff like that. So it's a work in progress. Yesterday I did step into a GameStop and got super excited over Nintendo Switch. Okay.
I love Nintendo Switch.
Me too.
It's my number one platform.
Me too.
Right.
I love it.
So I was the person who used to show up on launch days and get gaming consoles, and then I went through a period of like personal stuff and okay, I'm at a friend's place.
I was going to start dancing.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Soon I'll get back into dancing. But yeah, I used to go out, do this and that, but then I decided to put everything aside and work really hard and get to where I need to be, or where I want to be. And this is something that I'm struggling with a bit right now. It's I'm trying to just watch TV and hang out with the cat and just chill out. So I wish I had answers like meditating and, or something, which sounds really nice. Sometimes I take a walk, and me and Marie. So that's the really best time for me. It's when around 10 or 11 my time, I get to call Marie, and we just kind of get super excited about our business and what do we want to do next. And I'll just walk, and we just talk, and we joke around, and that's my good time right now.
So are you saying Marie is your therapist? Is that correct?
Yeah,
we go back and forth a lot, and that's something we talk about. Maybe you guys have that with each other, where before we had each other in this business or business partnership or friendship at this point, I wouldn't have been able to push as hard as I have with Marie's support, and hopefully vice versa.
Yeah, that's true. I like to tell people that Moon believed in me and I believed in her until we could believe in our own selves. And
right.
That's kind of how it worked. So I believed in her, she believed in me, and we pushed each other. We're also super competitive.
We are. We'll start competing with each other. Like we've been having to dial it down a bit, but right, like we are competitive, but unfortunately, like the online game is a bit different. Having a group is, and I don't know, like it can get a little bit tricky. Sometimes there's, guys that just come pretty hard, come at you pretty hard or whatever. So it's a whole different ball game, and I'm glad to be partnered up with someone as calm and cool and collected as Marie. We'll put it that way.
One of the fun things. So this is the first time that we've had two guests on at the same time, right? And then also you guys work together, and so there's a perspective that you guys are offering here, and some insight that we haven't been able to talk about before, which is, you know, the strengths and or drawbacks of working with somebody, working closely with somebody. Which I love the way Maria, I think, said it. It's like you could trust the other person until you could wind up trusting yourself. Sometimes it's actually easier to rely on somebody else to look like they've got it all put together, because you don't know all the cracks that are under there. And in a certain way, it can kind of build some momentum and some the confidence in a lot of ways leads to more action. And
it does.
I think we're all just kind of across the board lucky, you know,
when
we're doing things, they tend to work out more often than we realize they would. But that angle on things, I think, is something that, you know, as people experience whatever they're doing online, should consider, which is, what does this look like if I'm solo versus if I'm working in partnerships? Or you know, is two people good, or is three people better? Is, you know, how does this really look? It can look completely different than what you're currently doing. Right.
Oh, absolutely. Right. And I think as running, whatever you want to call it, being an SEO or running an SEO agency or being in internet marketing, it can be very lonely work. And if you're struggling and you go online and you see these people who post articles, oh, I made 10K from one client, 5K from one client, you always feel like a failure, frankly, like, oh, I'm not doing that. And you know, years of that can add up. So if you don't have the right support, I mean, I can see why there's entrepreneurial depression and this and that, right? Like, you're constantly comparing yourself to what are these crazy levels supposed to be. So yeah, I mean, and that's why, you know, it probably hasn't, I've always sort of looked for a partner, but haven't found one until Marie. And I'm glad I didn't before that, because I just think our industry is cutthroat in a lot of ways. So yeah, there's a constant thing of, okay, there's a learning curve to this. But if you go online, you're always going to feel inadequate. And we try our best to not let that happen in our group. I don't know. What do you think, Marie?
I think for us, it worked out perfectly because we complement each other. So whatever I had or whatever strengths I had, she had the opposite. So us combined were a force to be reckoned with, but also we've developed a very good friendship too. And so, like Moon said, online can be very lonely or a very lonely place. So with each other, if anything is going on, we can call the other one, or we could say, hey, you know, take a look at this. What do you think? Or we always have each other to kind of lean on for support. And that just worked best for us. I thought I've always been one to partner or to think of partnerships. I think it's a smarter play because I can't do everything. I'm not really good at everything. And so I think a partnership, if you have the personality to work with someone else, because also we often joke that sometimes we have to go to therapy because we will have our moments of not agreeing. Or, you know, having to make complicated decisions. And we'll joke and say we need to go to therapy because, you know, we're not aligning, but we know that about each other. We know our patterns with each other. And so we're committed. And so if we do have a disagreement, we know we have to circle back and come back to it. And we make it work. I mean, we're just kind of like grown-ups in this whole thing. And we're being, you know, just smart business women. And we're looking at it as a grown-up would instead of, you know, having crazy fights over nothing.
And there's one other thing, and I think this is why it works really well. Well, two things is that we've made our mistakes in the past, whatever they were, and both of us treat our business, whatever you want to call it, our agency, like it's a child. Like we go at it, whatever it is. I don't care what she does on her time. She doesn't care what I do on my time. but no one's going to fuck with the business. Like, that's her priority, first and foremost. And the second thing, I completely forgot. Oh, it was the fact that I think, I don't know. For me, I've said it, that our industry is very cutthroat, and I think with that comes a lot of greed. Don't get me wrong. I want to make a lot of money too, but if I'd rather make sure that both of us have a roof over our heads and we're comfortable than bank out on my own. You know what I mean? Like, I'd rather make sure that both of us are doing very, very decently than just, you know, even if I had the potential to go out and make a mill on my own. Like, I don't really care for that. It doesn't mean much. It's a lot of fun for me to wake up and talk to Marie, and we text back and forth and laugh about stuff, and then, you know, sometimes like deal with some stuff. But that's just my insight. So
I think there's something that you guys are hitting on a lot here that is not really well understood when people who have their cubicle job. Probably the only thing that I think is really missing, that is easily missing, let's say, from compared to that I kind of miss, is sort of like forced socialization. And we're sitting there, and at least for me, even though I have a family, I go into an office. It's a one-room office, and I pretty much never work with colleagues, which is why, you know, I try to go to at least one or two conferences a year of people who can actually talk about business, and like my wife's eyes gloss over, and you know, and because she doesn't know, there's so much context to what we do. You can't just say, what did you do today? Well, I did all these hundreds of different little things, and like, what the fuck are you talking about? Nonsense. And so I think that's really good to have somebody you can talk to, and I think it even if it's just one person, going from 0 to 1 is huge. And then having like an ally, someone who has a shared interest. It's not just like someone who likes you and wants you to do good, but someone who has kind of a vested interest. Like Marie's children's future is sort of like, you know, what you do, Moon, is kind of affected by that. Not to put too much pressure on you, but but like,
are they going to Harvard, Marie?
The point is that like her support of you is tied, her children's success in a way, in one sense, is tied to supporting you. And so those kind of ties can help you potentially feel more confident and comfortable in the support. Maybe not like intellectually, but in the back of your mind, having someone who it has no like direct like financial like incentives to help you is going to be a little bit harder, even if they, you know, that they really like you. So that is, to me, is super important as well.
Yeah. And that way we are very secure with each other. Like, I mean, there are times I don't even check our bank balance. Like, Marie can just, you know, fill me in or what, like, and, you know, she does the invoices here or there or whatever. I don't care about like stuff like that. We are not petty in that sense, and we treat each other completely. And yeah, you're right about the whole forced socialization thing, because I've realized I've developed anxieties, like social anxiety and stuff, and it's because I sit at home. Is a blessing, don't get me wrong. The other day I went to an appointment, and like it was during rush hour, and I have forgotten what that right? So it's a blessing, don't get me wrong, but at the same time, when I was even working as a programmer, you would come in and say hello. You would share stories with your coworkers, you know, whoever your friends were there, or then go grab lunch together, and then you drive home, and then, you know, you talk to someone, whatever. Having worked 10, 12-hour days and then just staying home, it's right. So I didn't realize what that was essentially doing in the long term, right? So that's very true. It's, if you work from home, I think it's essential that you have something in your routine where you either do local, like you go to local meetups or something like that at least once a week, or I don't know, like make friends in your city who are SEOs or marketers or whatever. So there's that socialization just happening on some level.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah. So one of the things that I wanted to touch on is, so you've talked about kind of the agency, Rule Your Rankings, and how that grew. But I've also noticed in the group, Maria's putting like feelers out there, right? For like info products, like if there's a guide that we could put together, right? So maybe talk about kind of your approach, like coming out of agency and looking at now maybe info marketing, or how you view that, and how you have just, I won't say decided, but you're inquisitive as to whether or not that would be helpful for the people in your group and how that would work, and just kind of maybe the thinking behind that or the questions behind that.
Well, in our group, we're a little bit different, where we're not led by backlinks or kind of like the off-site processes, but we mainly focus with the on-site processes. So the reason why we even kind of launched into that area is, for both of us, it was an area that wasn't fully developed with the other groups, or fully developed within any of the courses that we were, taking. And so when we launched further into on-page, we realized there was a lot of missing holes. So we're trying to figure out where, what would be helpful for somebody else, so that they're able to, not have a stuck site. And so with our agency, we take on clients that either have stuck sites, or they've done something to their site so that, the story is always, I throw all the backlinks at it and it doesn't move. And so we're known to untangle all of these sites. And so as we're working through the processes, we realized it's a system that we go through each and every time. And if we can provide something for people, for somebody else, they're not going to get their sites stuck or in the big tangle that we see them in. And there are people who want to learn more and be able to do it, but it's just really not being fully covered, at least in none of the places that we're hanging out anyway. So it's kind of a new topic. It's kind of a topic we're trying to, continue to develop and to see where it can go. The more we dig into it, the more we realize people just really aren't putting a lot of effort into on-page. We're depending on, like 10 minutes worth of on-page, and then the rest of the time is just, where do I buy backlinks?
Right. And just like RYR came to be, Marie and I started getting messages here and there. Hey, do you guys have a course or training or anything available, where we can learn what you guys do? And so we were very resistant to putting out a course or a product.
Yes.
It was dragging teeth, okay? She even delayed the launch. I'd like to give her a hard time about this. She did. So I had a launch date in mind, and she's like, oh, we're going to need to delay this by blah, blah, blah. It's like 2 weeks late. And all of a sudden, like the sixth sense, like these alarms went off in my head, because she never said why. And so I knew it was fear playing at her. So we talked it out, we launched it, and it's worked out really well. So with the whole info product thing, I can see, like, that's part of the whole time freedom thing is if you've come across something valuable that you have to share with other people, I would encourage you to do it. And also what we share is something that we did for our clients, right? And it's like Marie said, it wasn't talked about a lot. Like, people just gloss over on-site stuff. They leave technical issues alone. And that's something, we're proud of. Like, we didn't even hit the year mark once we formed our agency, and we broke 6 figures using these techniques. And it's really cool when clients or even students come back and they say, hey, I tried your link silo or whatever, and look what happened. And it's a cool graph of, rankings going up, or, one of the case studies we released where one of the clients we worked on, he's now averaging, his rankings were tanking. He was doing okay, but he noticed a trend. I think he was making $7,000 to $9,000 per month. And now he's making, after we did the fixes and stuff, after the work's been done for a few months, now, what? Right. $25,000
a month.
Yeah, so those are the things I would read and roll my eyes at, like, yeah, right. But it's really cool to be able to do this for clients. So just, making a training out of something that is this valuable, and to be able to sell it and people want it, that's been a blessing for sure.
Is that the ryrlevelup.com?
Yes.
Yes.
So
yes.
Tell me about what you offer on there.
We're not sure. No.
Oh, you're not sure now.
I'm kidding. So all of our approach is on page. It's correctly untangling, your sites or building out your sites so that they're not tangled up. One of my big focuses has been on keyword cannibalization.
Right.
I've worked with a lot of big websites, helping them straighten that out. I work with Fortune 500 companies doing the same thing. So we're trying to teach people how not to get your sites stuck or into trouble. And if they're in trouble, what do you need to do to fix it? And it's all boiling down to on page. So everything in our course is only about on page, and we do very little discussion about off site.
Yeah, so we have some live case studies in there so that people can go through our course or course module and actually look up the website and see how we structured it. Because it's cute to talk about all these things, but then, you know, applying it on a real live website, different things can happen, right? So we have a couple of local trainings. We have an affiliate one. We have a section on keyword cannibalization. We pieced together our silos, a little course module on that. We did FAQ Friday where we answered detailed questions from other students, whether they were working on their own sites or whatever.
Yeah.
So
and I think what the course is known for is we've reworked a silo or a few silos so that they're actually producing, you know, they're actually raising your rankings before you're applying backlinks.
Right. So one big thing I want to clarify is when people, this gets on my nerves, when SEOs approach us and they just gloss over on-site SEO technical fixes, they're really not, like they're dismissing 70-80% of SEO at that point. Like what we do actually raises rankings. We're not just doing it as a good habit to do before applying backlinks. Like the stuff we do will take you 80-90% there, if not 100%. It just depends how competitive your niche or market is. And so we save a lot on backlinks. We only apply them as needed. But like 90% of SEOs, they seem to just gloss over. They just think like throwing a keyword on the page somewhere or in the meta title is on-site SEO. But there's experimentation to be done.
And not even just glossing over it, but I found a lot of, and I was doing it too in the beginning, where I think we would do like 1,000,001 things to rank a site.
Right.
And what I wanted to do was boil it down to the few things you need to do to rank a site so that I could free up time. So when we were envisioning and figuring out what the course should have, I was figuring it out for my own clients at the time because I was tired of doing 1,000,001 things.
Yeah.
I mean, some of it's so cool and we think it's fascinating, but really I just want to get the site to where it needs to be and then I'm done, you know, I'm done with it.
So if you're listening to this, it sounds like they're planning on taking their product down. I can see it's for sale right now. Go to ryr.com, levelup.com and try to buy their product if it's still up by the time you hear this. If you want to save yourself some time. I like what you said about like if you do the on page, it's basically less costly than doing the off page if you're missing some opportunities. And also it probably makes, you know, just like when you kind of have to, to me, it's like kind of like 4 legs of the chair. If you have 2 legs that are super weak and then the other 2 are super strong, well, that's not very, or like a bodybuilder who just does upper body and doesn't do any lower body, something like that.
Yeah. And it's helping us stay out of all of the algo issues. So, you know, by concentrating on page where somehow we became white hat, which I didn't even realize was happening. Honestly, I just wanted to free up my time. And I don't like to do everything. I only like to do what pushes the needle the most. So I won't do everything. If it just gives me a little bit of a push, I'm over it. I don't really want it. So what I'm looking for is what makes the largest impact. And we ended up becoming white hat. People have told us, which I didn't even realize on page was that white hat until someone pointed it out, because before all of this, back in the day, I relied only on backlinks to push sites. I wasn't spending that much time on page, and really I didn't know that it could push rankings.
Yeah, it's Right.
I just thought we set up a site, and then we bought backlinks. And honestly, years ago, when I first started working on all this, I had a couple of sites, client sites, that actually cannibalized some of the terms, and it was like one of the algo updates that was going through. And so what I was doing was no longer acceptable, and that's kind of how it all started.
Right.
I'm curious. This is one of my favorite questions that I think is actually really telling. I'll start with Marie on this. If you had to start all over, if all of your assets, all of your resources, but you still had your brain. Let's say Moon decided that she didn't like you anymore, and you guys split up, and you had to start all over. Sorry, Moon. What would you do? What would be your path there? Because I don't want you to feel like, I don't know. Maybe I guess I could do a question of like, if you guys both had to start all over, you had no assets, no clients, and then maybe if that's better, a little bit easier to reasonably understand. Maybe that would be a better question then.
I'm a believer of I'm here now because of my past, or the past and all of my failings. And so I would probably go back through the process. I think that we are only succeeding because we have failed. So I don't know if I would have changed anything or do anything better, because to do anything different from what we're doing, I think we're still going to have to go through the process of failing before we succeed. And I think everyone's afraid of failing. But the way I look at it, both Moon and I have failed miserably in the past, but it was everything leading up to the moments that we're having now.
Yeah.
So having to do it all over again, I don't think I would probably do it all over just the way that I did it, with different jobs, different opportunities, and trying to figure it out. I think we could pretend we would be super smart because we've already lived through this part of it. But I think we're going to go back through the failing and trial and error, and it's just going to happen, to do anything different than what we're doing. But anything in our past was preparing us for what we have now.
But you would do a client SEO agency?
Probably. So I would probably stick with client SEO. It's where I have my deepest roots, and I know that I can make a lot of money super fast. So I'd probably lean on that. But I think my take on it would be that I certainly wouldn't be running or in the business operations the way that I was the first time. So right away off the bat, I would figure it out so that I'm not actually running the business. That was the major mistake I made the first time.
Same question to you, Moon. If you guys had to start all over, like what path would you take? Yeah.
Ooh, that's a deep question. Everything Marie has said, it's true, but I think what I would invest in is, honestly, I think having case studies with a unique voice and writing style really helped us out a lot. Not only was our angle different with Onsite and the work we've done, and I could put that into case studies, but I had fun writing them and being creative in that sense. So what it did was not only resonate with people who weren't seeing the payoff with just backlinks, right? Like they wanted to learn more about Onsite and technical fixes, but it also set us apart, and they would remember us due to the unique way in which it sounds narcissistic writing skill, but I tried to make them humorous and entertaining. So, whenever you go and get these case studies, they're interesting from a money perspective or techniques and stuff, but they're also very bland because once I'm done reading them, I don't remember who wrote it or, who it belonged to. But with Marie, I love to make fun of her Texan roots. So, the sense
How dare you?
Yeah. Right. She's usually like in her Texas blanket and stuff. So I think just being confident, like you have to be confident. You should have some really good case studies and a voice. Don't be afraid to be unique. I think that's what really propelled us looking back.
Yeah. Don't be afraid to get kicked out of the groups. It's okay.
Yeah. Don't be. Right.
Test your failure points.
Yeah. we were so afraid too. Like, I remember when we started, we would be like, should I post this? Should I not? I'd be like, come on, Marie, what's the worst that's going to happen? Before I know it, she's getting booted.
Got banned. That's what happened.
Use your fake profile and post that question.
See, I didn't even know that. I didn't even have fake profiles. And the funny thing is we were just getting banned from groups just because we had a different take on, you know, what was going on or what we saw. We just didn't. And they, you know, people didn't like it. They were like, form your own group. Speak that trash somewhere else. So
that's just bullshit. It's the idea that the idea that I figured it all out and there's nothing more to figure out is a way to not be successful.
And everyone else should just be quiet. And
So feel free to post in my group, my Operation Day Job Liberation.
All right, we're gonna have to post.
Feel free to.
That's cool. It was just really like weird because we weren't like saying back don't work or we hate backlinks or anything like more like, okay guys, backlinks don't fix everything. Like you got to start with a nicely developed site. You got to pay attention to these factors and then, you know, do what you want to do. But it, you know, whatever, it brought us here, so I'm not unhappy.
Yeah, I like what you said, Maria, about like failing is part of succeeding.
It is.
If you're not failing, then you're not trying to push your limits. You're not testing what works and what doesn't work. What do you think about that, Fletch?
You guys are all wrong.
Fuck you, Fletch. I don't want to hear from you anymore.
No, I feel fortunate to have, I guess, walked whatever path I did to recognize that what Marie and Moon are doing here is really something that opens up a valve that a lot of people have kept really shut down, and because of that had a lot of inefficiencies in their business, whether they're doing well with SEO, with just like specifically what we're talking about here, search engine optimization, and kind of the existing paradigm where you've got a website or a web page and you send links to it to get it more exposure on primarily Google. With that, you've got kind of off-site, on-site, off-page, on-page. The on-page valve, people tended not to pay that much attention to because it was, I'll just say, easier in one way or another. You could go to a marketplace in one way or another and acquire links that would get you ranked. Yeah. And so
it was a lot easier.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it took less time, right? Less investment, less understanding. Yeah, there's just several things, and that's actually been kind of a transition that's occurring as the algorithm updates and things like that. But yeah, what they spoke on at the event where we met was this topic specifically, and keyword cannibalization, and it was a topic I hadn't really heard about much, but they brought up some interesting points that made me think and question some of my paradigm, my model of understanding what was really going on. And so I wanted to try to, investigate that further with all the questions I asked. So yeah. But yeah, I really like it because it came from a place of curiosity. Let's really figure out what's happening here. Let's represent this properly, right? Let's not be so markety and pitchy that we really miss an opportunity here to connect and represent this accurately. And so, for me, the question I always pose people, and I think I posted this in your guys' group, I was like, well, so what have you done on the internet that's not on a page? Right? Everything we do on the internet is on a page. So understanding what's going on pages is pretty important.
I have a counterpoint to that. You asked me that before. I have a counterpoint to that.
So it's taking you now a month to find something.
No. I told you then, and I think you've forgotten. So I did everything. With one of the reasons, like with my Dallas SEO Geek website, that I did offline SEO, and then I took action off the internet that got people to take action on the internet that helped me rank.
Wait, on Google.com? That URL?
Well, I didn't go to Google.com. They did. I'm getting you off on a technicality here. Anyway, sorry to interrupt you, Fletch.
It's all good. No. This is where we take the gloves off and David and I just start duking it out.
This is the same thing we do, the competitiveness.
That's exactly what we do.
Yeah. No, but case in point to what David's talking about is is really just looking at a situation and being like, hey, you know what? If people are going and looking for my brand, that in one way or another, it's going to be helpful to me.
Yes.
You know, and I think a lot of people get a little too like stuck in their own little model of how things kind of work, and they work okay, to not step out of it and question, maybe there's some other way I can look at this and, you know, really open up a whole new world.
Also, I think it's putting like an ego before your group, because if you come in and you have it, like if I'm trying to envision you guys coming in and posting like on a case study that I'm seeing in your groups right now, I'm like seeing that like, why is that bad? Even if it gives a slightly different perspective on some of the things that I've said, if you back it up with data and it's something that can actually help people, shouldn't I want that? Even if it's not exactly what I say, I don't, that kind of is a little bit mind-blowing to me.
And
common.
And it's mind-blowing to us. And also, you know, I do believe a lot of us work inside of, I always call it like an SEO box, and we make all these decisions, and I think we drum up a lot of the drama that's not even really there. But, you know, Moon and I say this all the time. If backlinks came back to what they were when we were using all of them, I would, you know, ditch on page and fire
I'd be a millionaire
all over again. And I wouldn't have a problem. You know, we use what works right now. And that's important. I mean, if I can't, you know, help a tree service company or whoever it is that I'm helping, because I'm not evolving with it, then I think you're going to have a really big problem. And so we just continue to evolve with it. And if backlinks become a hero tomorrow, I will tell the group, go buy your backlinks, you know?
Right. And another really cool thing is, like, since we all started, well, I don't know if everyone started in these groups, but like all this information that goes along with, just, you know, use these magical backlinks, you know, you're going to start ranking. It honestly, when I connected with Marie, even though I was getting results on my own sites for my clients, you still think that something isn't quite right because everyone else is doing it another way, and you're wrong because you didn't do that thing correctly, right, to get those results. But when we started comparing notes, there was a lot of on-site and technical fixes we were doing, and I have forgotten my point. There was something really nice I was supposed to wrap it up.
Now you're definitely part of this podcast.
Right. So what I was trying to say is, it is mind-blowing for me. And I'm not saying this is going to happen with payday loans or these super competitive things, but like backlinks are good to have when you need them. But we have literally been able to rank local SEO sites and even a couple of affiliate sites, depending, right? Like I've been able to push them with on-site and get them in the top 5 positions or top 3 positions, whatever they are. And I'm not saying that's the case, you know, in super competitive but a lot of SEOs, you know, if you take on a small town client or medium, you're going to be able to push them with on-site stuff. Just trust me on this. This is something we've been doing for almost 2 years, and we strictly do on-site. If we couldn't do it, if we couldn't produce the results, I mean, then we'd be sharing that with you. But honestly, it works. You just have to experiment and learn it. And it just blows my mind sometimes. I'll call Marie and be like, oh my God, look at what's happening over here. And it's because I implemented this kind of silo, or she did this. So it's certainly, it blows my mind how we came onto it, and that I can push even affiliate ranking sometimes doing this kind of stuff and get it to page 1 or this or that. Because, you know, when you do competitor evaluation, like a lot of them don't use link silos that well, or if at all. Like they're really depending on backlinks, and we are able to cut our costs greatly by just, you know, pushing our techniques or strategies or whatever you want to call them.
Buy your product.
All I heard was buy your product, Dave.
That's all I heard too.
Did the internet do this to us? They just cut right to the chase here.
Buy their product. Look at this now.
Thank you, Dave.
I think that the data approach is something that speaks to me as well. It's not about like it's about what works. What works? We're taking the trying things and then putting all the pieces together and comparing information and go, oh, when we did this worked. and going down to, I really like what Marie said about how like you don't do the things that only help a little bit, because largely because it's an opportunity cost. By spending time on that, you're not spending resources. You're not spending resources on the things that work the best.
Yeah.
So
Right.
I really like that approach.
And there's that, and then also like SEOs, and I'm guilty of this. Like I love to read different things. You get lost in experimentation, but to start doing this, like they'll do 20 things half-assed, right? Like there's so much attention to. You start throwing every shit on the wall, whatever you want to call it. But for us, it's come down to a specific amount of things, and it's not a long list. We try to keep it, like use the factors that are going to maximize the results. Let's put it that way. I don't have time anymore to sit and implement like 50 different things. I'm just, whatever.
Yeah, we're too tired for that now. We went through those years.
We are adulting hard.
Adulting. We got new words. It's Shakespeare right now. Yeah.
I was thinking about the adulting word, and I was trying to create a word that was like kidding, but it's not kidding. Is there a word for that? I don't think there is.
I don't think there is.
But there needs to be a word that's not kidding, but kidding. Because sometimes as an adult, you want to embrace your inner child.
Yes.
Yeah, you do. I mean, oof, good Lord.
Especially on Halloween.
Yeah.
Which we're recording this the day after Halloween, by the way.
Yes, we are. We should have had candies lined up. I didn't even bring anything with me.
If I look around too hard for food, it's not going to be pleasant.
I'm like looking everywhere. I'm at my friend's place, so I have a 19-year-old cat, right? And he likes to throw fits all the time. So morning is it's his time. Like I don't get to work until 9:10 when I call her, because he wants smoked Gouda, he wants his creamer. And he meows like he will throw a fit, and he's deaf too, so I don't think he realizes.
Did you say smoked Gouda?
Yeah, so I brought it home and I forgot. Like he can sniff it out a mile away. It's every morning. It's
Predator.
like I gotta chop up smoked Gouda. Not
senses to the.
He has. So
the 11th degree smoked Gouda's in the house. I'm going to find it.
I know.
Now
so
you have a bougie cat.
He stopped coming into the kitchen until I got smoked Gouda, and now he will trail me into the kitchen and meow, and I'm like, oh my God, someone's going to report me because he's so loud. So I was like, there's no way I can do a podcast with him, so I ended up over here, but maybe next time, if we have a next time, we'll do it from my place.
Well, we'll have to send you some smoked Gouda to calm that cat down.
Right.
Yeah, you know what? That he might require that payment.
Special trip to Wisconsin, just in case.
Yeah.
Right.
Send this one.
Well, Fletch, do you have any more questions for them? I've kind of walked through our checklist.
I've already been told that I already asked too many questions, so I know there's more. That? Well, I think they both did.
I said it.
Alluded to it.
I
think they said it directly.
It
between the lines and explicitly stated that I.
You know what? At first it was intimidating, but now I admire it, Fletch. Now it's
cool. Okay, good.
Now it's good. It's
now we know where the place
it was.
It
was
from.
Not. Yeah. There was no maliciousness behind it.
I do have one question. Okay, so this whole thing has been about us, but how did you two meet?
The internet, just like I met my wife.
I've been in.
The internet,
yeah, there was a dating site, and I just thought Fletch looked like a big teddy bear.
Things hadn't worked out too well in my life up to that point, so I said, "Hey, let's roll the dice and see where this."
He likes green hats.
He
swipe left.
We met through OMG. I joined OMG. And you guys know what I mean. Are you guys in OMG? I don't even know.
No, we're not.
Do you know what I'm talking about when I say
I'm familiar with it.
Yeah. I've been in OMG like since the beginning, like 2012, and I think Fletch, you joined in 2013.
Yep, just a little after you, a few months after you did.
Yeah,
I
and
think.
so we've met several times at their conference.
Live events.
Yeah, their live events.
Okay. And did you impression that we did about Fletch, Dave?
What's that? What's my impression? Yeah, it's similar impression, just like an easy person to talk to, someone who was genuine, someone who wasn't willing. Right. Like there's a lot of people who put their egos first in our industry, and and I encountered this with some people who are very well known, where like they would say something and I would have data that contradicted that, and I would bring it up, and that would upset them, as opposed to like with Fletch, it would be like, oh, let's talk about that. Let's
yeah.
Maybe I'm right. Maybe we're both wrong. Maybe you're wrong, whatever. It doesn't matter. It's just a search for truth. And I felt like that's something that me and him connected on. We're both kind of searching for truth. I was known as a kid as asking tons of questions. I'm getting the dose of my own medicine with my son right now. Sometimes I'm like, shut the fuck up. Just so many questions, but at the same time,
why,
it's like, wait,
Daddy?
I want the questions, but I don't want the questions.
Yeah.
So yeah, we've been. I mean, how long have we? I guess it was. Did we meet in 2013 or 2000?
I think that first one in the end of 13 is when we probably first met. That was when I stole a car, I think.
Yeah. Got drunk and stole a car.
Man.
Allegedly.
And you were bonded for.
There are only a few people who witnessed it. And
boy.
and hush money has been provided, so it's all good.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then I think about a year ago, I was thinking about starting a podcast, and I asked Fletch to come on. I intentionally did this. He was my first person I asked, and he was like, he sounded so enthusiastic, and I thought it'd be great to have a partner. And so I asked him if he wanted to be a partner, and here we are.
So that's what he's like. You, Marie, like he sent an invite out. He had to do it right, you know.
Yeah. You're the male. You guys are the male version of us.
We're like
the systems guy, as you can tell. I'm trying to like keep us on topic. Sometimes I'm pulling Fletch back from. I do the same thing as well.
Swinging from the rafters with my pants off.
But that's part of the fun.
I haven't done that in a while. Yeah.
We need to let some of the pants off stuff happen. So.
We do.
It does. It's like she'll be like, rip the Band-Aid off, and I'm like, okay, it's coming. It's coming like a hammer. I don't know about a Band-Aid, but. Yeah. So how long have you got? How old is this podcast? Like, is it a year old or older?
Yeah. When did we? So you brought this up, David. I started a podcast, and it was kind of like, okay, now I understand the technology. Now I need to kind of get the concept right, and
yeah,
there's always other opportunities. And so I was like, well, maybe I'll go over here for a while. And then David kind of brought this up to me, and that you can take over the story now.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think we started recording stuff in January of this year, 2019.
Okay.
And I'm looking at the website, and we didn't publish the first, maybe this is wrong. It's saying April 3rd of this year, but I feel like we had our first several come out a little earlier than that, but let's just say early to semi-early 2019.
Yeah, you wanted to have, I think, I don't know, 8 or 10 in the can, really, before we started publishing, if I recall. Something like that. And so we ran those as the two of us, and just kind of back and forth on a few topics that we kind of felt were important, but also knew were important, kind of both sides of that. And then, it's kind of evolved from there. And the format's obviously not, it's not like we're breaking ground here, but in this industry, at least, I think there's a lot. There are a lot of people who have a lot to contribute, who don't necessarily have a huge reach or the opportunity to talk to people in a non like sales webinar format, right?
Yeah.
And so, I think that's one of the reasons why the groups have taken off, but then a lot of times those just become kind of a way to build a list and all this, and people become depersonalized in a lot of ways. And that was something that I looked at this format being able to run against the grain with, in a way, where it's not that it's not about selling or offering solutions to problems and products that can solve problems and all that kind of thing. But in one way or another, being able to connect with or understand that someone else's journey is similar enough to yours that you're going to have an opportunity to do this kind of thing as well, is a piece that we wanted to kind of feature on this on this kind of platform, so to speak. So
I'm a big fan
I
of the
can
idea
certainly.
of freedom. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I can certainly appreciate it because we create our own pressures too. Like I was looking forward to the podcast, but I'm always like, I sweat bullets over these things. It's not like we do a lot of these, and it's nice to get asked, but you know, there's always a pressure of, oh my God, what's this going to be about? But it's so much easier to have a conversation. And I agree with you. There's that human element just missing out of these podcasts. Like, yeah, we're all here to make money. I want to make more money, but you know, when you're not able to relate to each other and learn from each other's stories, like that's just missing in our space. So I think it's super cool what you guys are doing.
Thanks.
Well, David gets credit.
Oh, well, thank you, Fletch. I'll take all the credit. Just give it.
He got the hat. He gets credit. I just have the black and white filter on my camera. That's all I do.
You do?
Pretty
oh
dope.
my God. Why? Is that just an artistic little filter, or you?
Yeah, it's mostly to help with my skin tone.
I should have thought about this.
I grew a beard to cover part of it, but I couldn't do anything with
classic like that.
Yeah.
It looks pretty cool. It sets a tone like this is Fletch. You know what I mean?
So I'll drop you an affiliate link in the end of the show.
Okay.
It'll be in the show.
We can promote it in our group, okay?
Yeah, we'll promote it.
Yeah. It works fine as long as your computer has enough horsepower. And if it doesn't, here's this other link. You can buy it.
That's right. Computer. We can just keep on with the links.
Yep.
Upsells and downsells. I've learned we're going to implement that.
Well, so let's recap where people can go to find more information about you guys. So if they want to hire you for services, they go to ruleyourrankings.com, right? And if they want to learn from you guys on how you guys do that, ryrlevelup.com, maybe.
Yes, you got it. And for services, just hit us up on Facebook. We just like to have a conversation.
Yeah, believe it or not, most of our business, you know, a lot of people will just either message us on Facebook or some people even actually like call us, like phone.
I don't know about us. It's her. I don't pick up my phone.
They actually talk to you?
Oh my God. She does.
Like I get a lot of phone calls, whereas Moon's like, I don't know what the phone is. I never want to use the phone.
So here's the reason. Okay, there's a reason behind this. When I had that hosting job, people would call in angry 99% of the time. And I swear that was like forever ago. But ever since, I hate phone calls. They could be calls. I hate them. And Marie will pick up the phone and call and close.
I talk to everybody on the phone.
She does. She's like, she looks forward to them. She has appointments on. I'm like, okay, I live it up, I guess. Phone calls. I hate them, but.
All right. So message them on Facebook. They do have a Facebook group where it looks like there's a lot of activity in it called Rule Your Rankings. So you can search for that. It's free to join, I presume.
Yes.
No, it's $5.
You have to answer questions, though. I had to answer questions.
Yeah, you get caught up in it. Be careful.
that is a cost. So there's a cost.
Opportunity
and
cost.
I found, I did join your email list real quick, and while we were talking, and I do appreciate you were talking about your voice before Moon, and the first thing I was encountered with was Garth, a GIF of Garth, and I immediately knew that I was in the right place.
Garth Algar,
like Wayne and
yes.
like Wayne's World Garth.
I know his name.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's all Moon's doing. That's not me. I don't have it in me.
I love memes. I love all of that stuff.
Yeah, she does.
I mean, it continues. It's entertaining. I think that makes it so like when they're trying to tell you stuff or sell you on stuff, you'll at least be entertained. So maybe
Yeah, Moon definitely entertains everybody. She actually gets a lot of comments about her writing style and the things that she says. Whereas I'm more of just of the technical, analytical, I'm, on the other side of it. And Moon is constantly coming up with new ideas to entertain and new ways to even deliver the message.
At this point, if I have to write these boring ass case studies and I can't keep my eyes open, like it's not worth it. You know what I mean? If I'm
might as well spend a little bit of time and put some flavor into it, right?
Yeah, that's what she does. She puts flavor into
Appreciate it. Respect.
David is winning my heart right now.
Yeah, you two are bonding. Right, I see it. This
is what you were supposed to do initially, Marie. This is how you were supposed to.
I see a new partnership forming. Nice.
Woo! Things might be happening.
Well, that's all I've got. Fletch, would you like to give any last words before we send our visitors off?
Party on, Wayne.
Party on, Garth.
No, I think this has been a really an informative, enlightening session for a lot of different reasons, right? It's a partnership duo that is a completely different, kind of take on kind of the solopreneurship of being online. And I think like one of the things I really appreciate, Moon, was that you talked about kind of like how that kind of isolation or even anxiety. I have that personally as well. I've talked about that before. We all have to in some way cope with ourselves and figure out how we're going to, maneuver online or just through life. And online offers its own challenges, and there's ways to kind of engineer around that, right? Design around that. But one of the first things you have to do is to look at it and say, okay, this is something I need to address, right? And deal with.
Right.
Yeah.
And, I just really appreciate you guys coming on and sharing so much and being so open with it. And, I'm sure a lot of the people that hear this and interact with it are going to appreciate that too. So just thank you.
Well, next time we should do like martinis or something. So.
Sounds good.
Oh, and I don't ever do
No,
that.
that's not going to work. We'll probably tell way too much of cider.
Oh, I'm sorry. Red wine for Marie.
Yeah.
Something else for me that I will not mention now. I need to go visit Moon to get it.
Well,
Yeah.
David lives in Texas still.
Yeah.
Move
Yeah, we're
west, young man.
In Texas, it's not going to happen.
I was in San Diego just a couple weeks ago.
What?
Oh, really?
Yeah, at Amy Porterfield's conference.
Okay.
Coronado Island.
Oh, yeah, Coronado's nice. Yeah, you guys should hit me up if you come to San Diego. You too, Marie, if you ever make it back.
I'm not going down.
Ah!
Just kidding. I'm just kidding.
What?
No,
Fletch, where do you reside?
I told you, you have to come to Texas first. It's
Oh.
just fair.
She's
I've already
trying-
been.
She's trying to make me go to Texas and like.
Yes, I want you to see
not
what
what you
everyone
think.
loves about it.
Especially Austin. Austin is not.
Ooh,
Is not
That's
you
what
would
I'm
think.
trying to tell her.
Austin
Listen,
is the
two
hippie
times-
center of Texas by like huge leaps and bounds.
Yes.
And actually, also Texas is like a story of cities and country. And so I was in
Okay.
Dallas, and it's like you wouldn't think that there's not like people riding around on horses and shooting guns.
That's what she asks. That's what she thinks.
Listen,
That's because I moved away from there. Yeah. Hasn't happened since I left.
That's hilarious. No, it's. She's trying to sell me on Austin. I'll come check it out one of these days. Maybe we can do
Good
something
town.
there and meet with other people, from the group too. But where do you reside, Fletch?
I'm in Phoenix, Arizona right now.
Oh, okay.
I actually used to live in Texas and Dallas. I worked in Houston for a while, south of Houston for a while. I've lived a lot of different places. I was in Orange County for a bit, Northern California, Alaska, Missouri, Wyoming, Colorado.
Alaska.
Oh my God.
That sounds like soul searching right there.
Yeah, you should listen
Oh.
to. Is it in our first episode
Might
where he
be.
talks about his Alaska?
Oh, that
experience?
backstory one? Oh, yeah.
I dug deep into that.
Oh my
So they talk
God.
about that.
He needed a shovel. He
It's
needed
an
a
interesting
shovel
story.
for something.
Hey, maybe if we come back on, we get to interview them, Marie. We get to put the spot a little.
Oh, yeah. Turn the light back on us. Huh?
Turn the light back. Yep.
But seriously, guys, thanks for the opportunity to do this as well.
Yes. And it was nice to meet you, David, and actually get to hear parts of your story.
Yes.
All right. Well,
All right.
thanks for listening,
All right.
and we'll see you, or you'll hear us on the next Cubicle Liberation podcast.
Awesome.